Because this offseason has been so incredibly underwhelming, it's forced me to look ahead and get a sense for what the potential free agency landscape is going to look like next summer, and what are some of the potential targets the Bulls could pursue, especially with the amount of cap space they are projected to have next offseason, with a lot of their biggest contracts coming off the books, most notably to Nikola Vucevic, Kevin Huerter, and Zach Collins. Of course, Coby White and Ayo Dosunmu are going to be coming off the books as well, as they're going to be playing on expiring contracts this season, which we'll obviously talk about and how that plays into the Bulls' overall strategy in 2026. But while this summer's free agency class has been pretty underwhelming, the free agency class of 2026 is going to be much more intriguing and promising in terms of the number of options the Bulls could have available to them at their disposal. So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at some of the top free agents in the summer 2026 class and what would be some of the best options for the Bulls. So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Now, I'd be remiss to say that so many things could change between now and next summer, not even just for the Bulls, but across the NBA in general. A lot of the current 2026 free agents may not end up being free agents by the time free agency opens next summer. Some could very well sign extensions before they hit free agency, as we saw already with some of the big names like Luka, who signed an extension with the Lakers, De'Aaron Fox, who extended for that max contract with the Spurs, and of course Mikal Bridges, who re-upped with the Knicks. All players who were initially going to be part of that 2026 free agency class who are now locked into long-term agreements. And then of course there are some players who have player options or team options that could very well be picked up, which would make them no longer free agents in 2026. But even aside from the potential players that would be available on the free agency market, the approach the Bulls take in free agency could wildly be different if they absolutely bomb in this upcoming season and fully start tanking, or they exceed expectations, outperform, and look to be more aggressive in landing a big name that helps them win now. So all this is to say that while these targets may be good options now, it's very possible that could drastically change depending on how many of these guys will actually still be free agents come July 2026. Also, how the Bulls perform in this upcoming season, and of course, where they land with Josh Giddey, because depending on how much they sign Giddey for, that obviously is going to impact how much salary cap they have available to them. Or if he takes the qualifying offer, well then now you're looking at a situation where Giddey is actually going to be included among the 2026 free agency class. But going based off of what we know today, I mean, we can write off some of the biggest names. LeBron James is set to be a free agent in 2026. That, of course, is if he decides not to retire this season, which that wouldn't be that much of a shock considering he'll be 41 years old, coming off his 23rd season in the NBA. But that's not going to be a target for the Bulls, nor should it be a target for the Bulls. Kevin Durant is also slated to be a free agent next summer, but he's going to come to an agreement on an extension with the Rockets before he becomes a free agent. I would be shocked if the Rockets traded for him on just a one-year rental, especially when KD more or less chose to go to the Rockets in the options he had available to him for the trades at his disposal. Then you look at other names like James Harden. No, he's got a player option anyway. CJ McCollum, Chris Middleton, Tobias Harris. I mean, none of these guys make sense for the Bulls and their timeline. I guess maybe if you're looking for some veteran leadership and they're able to get them on cheaper deals, maybe vet minimum deals, but those guys would go to a place where they could have a shot at winning a championship if they're getting offered the vet minimum. They're not going to come to Chicago. Zach LaVine, by the way, could become a free agent if he declines his player option, but yeah, that's not happening for the Bulls. But some of the guys that I do find intriguing that I believe will still be free agents next summer that could work for them are as follows. First up, I've got Isaiah Hartenstein. Now, Hartenstein has a team option on the final year of his deal that's worth $29 million, but I wouldn't be surprised with all the big contracts that the Thunder have kicking in for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Chet Holmgren, Jalen Williams, and yes, even Alex Caruso, if they opt to decline that option, to either try and sign him to a cheaper deal for more years, or they potentially let him walk to try and get below the first apron. And if Hartenstein is available, I don't see how the Bulls can't consider him as a potential option to be their starting center going forward with Vucevic and Zach Collins coming off the books. Jalen Smith, solid backup, but he's not a starting center in the NBA. And if the Bulls are thinking he's going to be their starting center once they either trade Vucevic or let him walk, yeah, that's a bad strategy to take. Hartenstein is one of these players that kind of fits the style the Bulls want to play, as a rim-running big that can get downhill in transition, be a lob threat when you need him to be, crash the boards, but also a solid rim protector on the other end. He's great with his finishing in the paint, has had one of the highest field goal percentages in the league over the last 2 years, and he's slowly becoming an underrated passer for a big man. Hartenstein will also be 28 by the time next summer rolls around, so it's not like you're talking about a player who is on the wrong side of 30 and maybe declining soon. My only hesitancy around Hartenstein is what is his next contract going to look like? Because a lot of people thought the Thunder overpaid for him, giving him that contract that he was going to be getting close to $30 million annually. And yeah, they probably did overpay for him. But in one of my videos on the NBA channel last year, Isaiah Hartenstein was actually one of my favorite signings of the offseason and something the Thunder really needed down low, and it worked out for them. But because he got such a big bag, because he now has a championship under his belt, he's been on a contender, for him to leave that situation, he's going to be expecting another big contract. That's just how it goes. Whenever you play for a championship team and you become a free agent shortly thereafter, the expectation is you're going to get a bag if you're going to a new team. And I would very much hesitate giving Hartenstein that kind of deal that the Thunder gave him. So if the Bulls can somehow get him on a reasonable deal with some team favorable options, I think Hartenstein would be a great fit. Lou Dort, by the way, is another option I would love for the Bulls, as he has a team option as well in the final year of his deal and could become a free agent, but I highly doubt the Thunder would decline that option. They're going to pick that up given Dort's production and impact for that team. Next, and another guy I feel will actually be available and could be on the move more so than people think, but that's Austin Reaves. A lot of people assume Reaves is just going to re-sign with the Lakers, but he wants quite a bit of money. And I don't know that the Lakers are going to be chomping at the bit to pay him north of $30 million annually. Now, the question would be, well, should the Bulls pay him that kind of money? And again, all of this depends on what they do with Coby White. Like, if they re-sign Coby to a big contract, well, then Reaves is out. But if they trade Coby before he becomes a free agent, or hell, they screw up negotiations and Coby walks to another team who makes him a more compelling offer, well, now there's a void at the 2 guard. And a player who could fill that void with his scoring and versatility on offense is Austin Reaves. Yeah, I guess you could still get creative with the cap and be able to sign all of Josh Giddey, Coby White, and Austin Reaves and have Reaves maybe play the 3, but then you've pretty much used the bulk of your cap space on all 3 of those players, considering Coby and Reaves will likely command between $30 to $35 million each and will have suitors and teams with cap space to be able to pay them that kind of money. Another player I would be looking at as a role player who could fill a need for the Bulls on the defensive end, and that's Matisse Thybulle. I mean, Thybulle isn't going to turn any heads. He's not a sexy name that would get fans excited. But when you're a team that is in need of defensive tenacity, even if it's just coming off the bench, you have to consider a player like Thybulle. Also, Thybulle quietly turned into one of the more reliable 3-and-D players in the NBA, where he has slowly improved that jump shot. The other benefit when it comes to pursuing a player like Thybulle in free agency is that you could likely get him for cheap. He's had his issues with injuries, he's not a starting caliber NBA player, but a role player that can make winning plays on defense, which is something the Bulls are going to need despite their focus being a get out and run style offense type of team. And then finally, the other intriguing names I'm looking at that would make sense for the Bulls, but are probably not as realistic of options, as they're more than likely going to be re-signing with their respective teams. But that's some of the restricted free agents for next offseason who have not yet agreed to an extension at the time of this recording anyway, and have until the start of the NBA season to do so. And the 3 restricted free agents I'm looking at in particular are Dyson Daniels, Keegan Murray, and Bennedict Mathurin. The most realistic of all of these is probably Keegan Murray, only because I think the Kings, being the Kings, will find a way to screw this up and not offer him an extension and instead double down on the Bulls 2.0 roster and not prioritize Murray as a result of it. Keegan Murray had this better than expected rookie season where he was one of the Kings' key pieces in that team that finally ended the playoff drought in Sacramento, being one of the best shooters in his draft class, a versatile wing that could score at all 3 levels, athletic combo forward with upside, and then has just kind of been placed on the back burner by the Kings the last 2 years and hasn't really been able to thrive like we saw him do in his rookie season. If in a new environment, a new system, a team that is going to prioritize youth, could we see Keegan Murray going back to being one of the top 3-point shooters in the league? Maybe. And if I'm the Bulls, I think it's worth finding out, especially if they're going to continue to push this strategy of young players with experience rather than all-out tanking. Keegan Murray would fit the bill for the Bulls in that instance. He'd fit the timeline, fit the style of play on offense. Mathurin and Dyson Daniels are really more wishful thinking at this point because I can't see either of their respective teams letting them go. Like, even if they hit restricted free agency, they're likely matching any offers those guys get. Although both the Pacers and the Hawks have to be careful themselves with their cap situation, especially when you consider the fact that Trae Young is due for an extension, and the Pacers are right up there next to the luxury tax, which we know they don't want to pay. They lost Miles Turner as a result of it. So who knows, maybe those guys would be more available than people think, depending on how their season goes for both of those teams. But either way, I would love Dyson Daniels on the Bulls. Him and Giddey, they're good friends. Daniels is arguably one of the best perimeter defenders in the league right now. First team all defense, second in defensive player of the year voting last season. Just a locked in, hard-nosed defender, and he's even improved offensively as well. Daniels would probably be my dream free agent at this point next summer for the Bulls, but I would say there's maybe a 2% chance the Hawks don't retain him. But anyway, those are some of my way too early free agent targets for the Bulls in 2026. I would love to hear what you guys think though. Who are some of the free agents you guys would like to see the Bulls pursue? Let me know in the comments. As always, be sure to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.